Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the All-Star Comedy Roundtable presented by Ben Stiller. Yeah, this event is a benefit for our TeenView program. I know the lights are dark, but all the people you see on cameras are filmmakers from our TeenView program, Nantucket High School students from this very school. So give them a round of applause. My name is Mistel Brabe. I'm the executive director. This is Tom LaSalle. He's a board member of ours. He's a manager, a producer from 3 Arts Entertainment, and I'm going to turn it over to him in a moment to introduce our guests today. But before I do that, I'd like to thank Epix for being the sponsor of our event today. I also want to thank Bartlett Farms for these beautiful plants. I want to thank Nantucket Hotel, and I also want to thank the Pearl for making sure that our guests are fed before they come on stage. So thank you very much, the Pearl. And Donnet Carey, if you're in the crowd, a big thank you and a shout out to you, and I'm going to turn it over to Tom.
Thank you, Mistel. Just going to introduce our panel. Whitney Cummings, you all know, is an LA-based comedian, actor, writer, producer, and director. She's known mostly for creating and starring in the series Whitney. She also co-created and co-wrote the Emmy-nominated series Two Broke Girls. Should we do one by one? Or? Great. Kristen Schaal, currently seen in Last Man on Earth, and has been seen on 30 Rock and many other TV shows and movies. Bridget Everett, world-renowned cabaret artist, and she's in Fun Mom Dinner and Patty Cakes, which are both playing at the festival. Ben Stiller, producer, director, writer, and actor, and has been on the Nantucket Film Festival Board of Directors since the festival's inception. And finally, Mike Birbiglia, comedian, storyteller. His films Sleepwalk with Me and Don't Think Twice, both screened here at the festival.
I think they're heckling us. Okay, so just before I introduce our host and bring everybody on, there's really nothing harder than being a comedian than actually trying to make it to Nantucket. So our host today has just walked off the slow boat after being turned away from 2 Highline ferries, before which she took the bus from Boston, where she was stuck overnight because her flight was canceled to Nantucket that was diverted from JFK. She has had no sleep. Her name is Sashir Zameda. She's a comedian, host, actor, writer. She's stand-up on a special called Pizza Mind that came out on Sisu this year, and she was on Saturday Night Live for 4 seasons. Everybody, please give it up for our Comedy Roundtable. I'm gonna give you this.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. You're so welcome. Wow. Yeah, I'm tired. How did you guys get here? I also had so much time on a plane and a bus and a boat that you'd think that I would have thought of an intro. I didn't. So I guess we'll go straight into it.
I want to point out, I'm going to steal a joke that Kristen said over there as they were saying the slow boat, which is that the slow boat is the greatest hardship Nantucket has ever faced.
Yeah, it's like every person was describing to me that you were on a slow boat like you were in prison. Like it was 2 hours, right?
It was 2 hours,
It was
yeah.
2 hours.
The slow boat.
And then also I want to point out, the reason there was laughter during the introductions when we were off stage was that every time anything was mentioned about Whitney's shows, she would shout, "Canceled!"
Look, I just want to make sure the scorecard is accurate. I just want you guys to know that I know they've been canceled. I heard.
But some people haven't had that many shows canceled, so that's like an accomplishment.
I'm incredibly successful. I just want you, I'm so successful that I don't even care that they were canceled. I just want you guys to know that I'm okay. Thank you.
Did they put you on the slow boat because of
Yeah,
that?
did it feel like like being
didn't have
on
to
a
ride
slow
on a
boat when
slow
you
boat.
heard it was canceled?
Yeah, no. It's almost like as bad as being out of lobster rolls in Nantucket.
All of you have worked in the TV. Should we? Do you wanna? Okay.
Yeah, let's
all right.
do it.
So you all work in TV and film, and other stuff too. And you all have.
Mike tells stories. Where are those told? That's the other thing. You can't just blow by that.
Storyteller.
What is a storyteller?
I don't know. I didn't write that. I wasn't involved with that introduction.
I would like to get into that business. I'm just curious.
Oh yeah, I think that you just you tell jokes, and if they don't go well, you say you're a storyteller.
But yeah, people do try to differentiate between storytellers and stand-up, but I don't think there's much of a difference. I don't. I mean, I feel like a lot of stand-up is storytelling.
Yeah, but there are real storytellers.
Yes, like
You're
The
like-
Moth and like.
Yeah, or like
Garrison Keillor.
Garrison Keillor.
Keeler?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not fancy
Right.
like that.
Or if you go to like a historical place and the guy who dresses up like from the time and will tell you the story of what happened.
Like a
there.
Renaissance fair?
No, not like if you go to like where Washington Irving lived or something like that.
Colonial
Guy-
Town, Williamsburg.
Like
Yes,
like
exactly.
a tour guide.
Yeah, and there are people like tell the story of the Headless Horseman, and he'll tell it really well. Yeah. Anyway, move on.
So Mike, you can always do that.
Tell us the Headless Horseman story.
You could be the headless horseman.
I mean, when this panel starts to get deep, I think we can all agree that we're all storytellers.
So true.
But we'll get there.
Agreed.
So you all work in TV and movies. And have such distinct voices. Do you feel like you've always been able to express your voice throughout your career, or do you feel like there was a point where you transitioned from like working for the man or like doing things you didn't necessarily want to do to a point where you're like, these are the things I actually want to do, or these are the ways I'm actually expressing myself the way I want to? Or,
I'll take this one. My name is Bridget, and I'm a regionally recognized cabaret singer. And I was just singing in karaoke bars, and right, Kristen? And
Oh, yeah, I knew Bridget before these guys did.
I just started writing my own stuff because nobody else would. So, and it's led to this moment right here.
I feel like I relate to that idea. Like I wanted to be like a writer for Conan or something when I was in college, and I interned there. And then I asked all the writers how they got to be writers there, and they were all like, "We did stand up and improv." Mm-hmm. In general, like it was different people. I was a stand up. I was an improviser, and then I just went back to college and just did that all the time. And then by the time I graduated from college, I'm like, yeah, I just like doing this, I guess. And then I don't want to write for Conan anymore. I would want to, I want to be on Conan at some point. And it's never happened. But, that's similar impulse of like you write for yourself because I didn't have anyone to write for, or I didn't have a job.
Yeah, also, like, no one's hiring you usually when you start out. So you have to figure out your own way of, doing it. And if you do have a sense of what you want to do, then if you're lucky enough to have that feeling inside, like, okay, I want to try this, or I feel like I could do this, then you have to start doing it. Mm-hmm. Whether it's good or bad or whatever, just find your voice within that.
Well, I was saying to Ben the other night, because I wanted to find out from him about, I read that you would make films when you were a kid. Like right. Spielberg and Wes Anderson, all these great filmmakers. And I'm always fascinated by that idea. Like how old were you when you started? You were, and on film, right?
Yeah, well, because I'm old. So it was, we had like the hand crank. It was, it was back in the day. I feel lucky that I had a chance to make Super 8 movies because I love film and the actual medium of film. And so, yeah, when I was a kid, I was like 10 years old, I started making movies in Riverside Park. And basically, like, I would make movies about my experience, which was I was like a kid who lived on the Upper West Side, and I would get mugged sometimes going home from school, or shaken down by kids for like my Timex watch or whatever, and I had, I guess I wanted to work that out, so like the stories would be like a kid coming home from school, another kid comes and mugs him and beats him up, and the kid, gets up, gets his friend, and they go find the kid and they beat the shit out of him.
A young Tarantino.
Yes, yeah. It was sort of like Death Wish inspired filmmaking.
You would have put those up on YouTube if it existed, right?
Exactly, yeah. It did not exist back then. But it was fun because you would make the film. I was telling Mike, you'd shoot the film, you'd have to take the film to the camera store, and you shoot your cartridge of Super 8 film, take it to the camera store, and put it in an envelope. The guy would give you a receipt, and then you'd come back 3 days later when it would come back from Kodak, and you'd actually get to see the film, and then you edit it, with your little like home splicer, and it was like an arts and crafts project. It was very exciting. It's just, really, the medium has changed so much. But in terms of expressing yourself, the way I'd relate that to what you do today is, people now, if you say I'm a comedian or I'm a filmmaker, you have to do it and put your thing out there. People expect you to do it now, right? You're expected to just create your own thing so that people will see. There's no barrier right anymore. Getting it noticed is another thing. I'm sure that's probably the hardest thing now, is actually to get someone to look at what you're doing or to find it on the in all the media that's out there. But I think it's wonderful that now you can just kind of go out there and do your own thing.
Yeah. Did you guys know that you wanted to be a comedian when you were younger, or like that you wanted to be a director or a producer or a writer? Like when I was younger, I watched SNL and I watched Mad TV and I wanted to do those things, but I had no idea like how those people got there. So I was like, oh wow. And then like eventually kind of fell into improv and things started happening.
I watched SNL when I was a kid, and
Yeah.
I still don't know how they get on there.
I don't either.
I think I was always going to be a comedian. I had a bad childhood, so that was kind of going to happen. But it's interesting because all of my friends who are comics weren't really funny kids. Like they were very serious kids that just wanted to be taken seriously and they just wanted to be heard. And then when they became adult enough to have like conversations like they were passionate about, people just started laughing, like the way they saw the world was funny. So I was always very serious. Like I thought I wanted to be a journalist, and then the first job I got was this show Punk'd. Remember that that prank show? There was some grumbling in the audience.
Some people were punked.
Remember back when there was MTV, and it was actually a very serious show, but a lot of comedians ended up sort of coming out of it. And I think that when someone suggests that you should try stand-up, that means like you're annoying. That's what happened to me. People always be like, you should try stand-up. Like, please stop talking.
Stop talking to me, get on stage.
You need to get away from me, ideally, immediately. This is exhausting. You're exhausting. So I had enough people suggest it to me, which was the subtext was like, you're obnoxious. And then I just ended up sort of trying it.
When I was in high school, I did this like government camp in Indiana where they like took 2 girls from each high school and you had like a microcosm of a government and you just like run your own world.
Sounds like a cult. Okay.
It was only 2 weeks. And I ran for lieutenant governor and then gave a speech and I had like one joke at the top and then people laughed at it and then continued to laugh throughout the speech even though I didn't write other jokes. And afterwards, people were like, you should do something where you like speak in front of people and make them laugh. I don't know, motivational speaker, good luck. Like no one knew that stand-up was a job, and I didn't either. I didn't know that could be a thing to do, but I was like, yeah, one day I'll figure it out. And then I did.
I always knew that I wanted to be an actress, and I remember when I got out of college and I was in New York and I couldn't get a job, which is why I started doing stand-up. My childhood was fine, but...
Good for you.
I know. You have more specials than me. So, anyways.
That's correct.
But it was tough because I couldn't get an audition. And I remember every night when it was really shitty, sucky, I would go to bed.
Is that a thing? Are people young here?
Yeah, I met some adorable kids.
We're in a school.
Sorry, I said that word before too.
Oh, it's okay. Well,
Round of applause if you're below 15.
well, it was a terrible time. And I would go to bed and I would think, oh God, please can I wake up not wanting to do this anymore? Can I just wake up wanting to be a botanist or anything else but this? Because this is awful. But I kept waking up wanting to do it. So that's why. But it was some lean times, guys.
I wanted to be a rock star.
Yeah.
You are.
No, but because I grew up and my childhood was somewhere between yours and yours, and
So awful.
but we listened to like Barry Manilow and Bette Midler, and I was like, well, how can I grow up and be that? And so I knew they were in New York, so I moved to New York, and I found out that like in order to get to be able to like put on low-cut dresses and sing songs, I had to tell stories just so I could sing the song. So really, any comedy is just an accident. It's really just an excuse to get up and sing and sometimes motorboat a new friend. That one is for the kids. You can dream big and it'll happen for you too. And if you don't know what motorboating is, I'm happy to show you.
Oh, I thought you were going to
motorboat me.
I was being asked to
She's
leave.
already been on a boat today. No motorboats.
No, it's just like if this is you and this is me, I mean, you just do that. And then, but it's maternal more than anything.
I went to one of Bridget's shows at Joe's Pubs and was covered in glitter by the time I left. It was really nice.
I can't motorboat anyone. It'd be more like a canoe. Don't laugh at that. Don't laugh at that.
Was there a project that you all had, like the first time you were like, this is undeniably me? Like either you wrote something or you directed something or you just like told a joke or something, but you're like, if you could look back and point at something and be like, that's when people started to notice what I can do as me.
Can't wait for that day to come.
Like a signature. You should take this.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
I feel like
remember
you're the guy for
I did I was doing a play. It was my first real job I got, this play called The House of Blue Leaves. It was off Broadway in New York. It was 1986, and it was an incredible cast, John Mahoney and Julie Haggerty and Swizzy Kurtz and all these great actors, and I had kind of a small part in the play, but we ran for a long time, and the play was a big hit. And I became friends with John Mahoney, who was the guy who played my dad in the play, and who's just a brilliant actor. And so I don't know how I got the idea to make a short film about him backstage, because he's like the nicest guy in the world, and everybody loves him, and he's just the sweetest guy. So I made this little film about him backstage being this horrible, alcoholic, just mean person. And I did it on like my home video camera, and then I actually edited it again back in the caveman days with a VCR, like 2 VCRs, where you'd put like the video in one machine, then you record off of it, and then stop. And so I did that, and then I showed it to the cast, like at a party, it was some sort of cast party, and I remember everybody watching it and laughing, and I remember having that feeling like, oh, this is what I want to do for sure. I mean, I knew I wanted to make films, but it was making everybody laugh, and I was probably like 20, and I remember thinking, oh, this is it. This feeling is great. I want to do that. I lost that film though, which is depressing to me. Yeah.
Oh man.
I smell a remake.
Yeah.
I feel like I have a kind of weird answer to this question. I think something's, I think I just was able to work on something where I was able to do what you're saying, but in television, at least in network television, which is such a weird beast. I mean, you guys know there's so many other things involved. I think you go in with the intention of being seen and heard and authentic, and then all these other things come in, like you are not allowed to say Coca-Cola. You're not allowed to say Jesus. You're not allowed to say I mean, I won't say what I'm not allowed to say, but there's so many weird, so I had the experience of where I thought I was going in to sort of be pure with your essence or do what you want to do, and then there's all these weird sort of roadblocks. So I think I sort of have not really been able to do that yet until I made an independent movie, which I'm so grateful you guys do this festival, so that independent filmmakers get to do that. So making an independent film was the first time I felt like I got to do that, although we were talking on the way here, all these other forces come in to sabotage you, like the weather and like your financier's check bounces and things like that get involved. But I think making an independent movie was the first time I was able to do that.
I had a thing somewhat similar to that, which is I made a sitcom pilot for CBS in like 2008 that didn't get picked up.
With Phil Hendry, right?
Yeah, Phil Hendry
That's
was
right.
in it, and Nick Kroll played my cousin, and Bob Odenkirk played my brother,
Wow.
and it was a great bunch of people. And it didn't get picked up for air. It was this really weird experience because my wife, my wife and I were not married at the time, but we were out there, and we were doing this thing that we sort of pretended to believe in. Like we were like, yeah, this is going to be a good sitcom because I'm supposed to be on a sitcom.
Been there.
Yeah, because that's what comedians are supposed to do. We're supposed to be on sitcoms. And then and then when it didn't get picked up to air, honestly, it's the best thing that's ever happened in my life because I came home to New York. My wife and I went to City Hall and got married, and then I mounted a one-person show called Sleepwalk with Me, and then it became a movie that played here a few years ago, and then.
I'm in it.
and I've just made a bunch of off-Broadway shows and independent films since then, and nobody's told me what to do. And I just feel really lucky that sitcom didn't happen.
Stop talking. Told you what to do.
Stop talking with me.
Yes, sir.
Sequel?
I made it similar to a short web series in the early 2000s called Penelope, Princess of Pets, about a girl who can talk to animals and they tell her that the world's going to end unless she kills a popular senator. We got to do like 10 of them, and I played them at my Edinburgh Fringe Festival shows, and they got so popular I actually got to make a pilot of it in London. And then it died. Editing, guys, you need to hire a good editor. In any case, it was something that I loved so much, and I still think about it. I was in charge of it with my friend Kurt Brownoller, and we got to make the whole thing together. And it's something that I would love to do again. But that was the first time I'm kind of chasing that. It was so long ago, and now I work on other people's projects, which is wonderful. But eventually, I'd love to go back and do my own weird. God, I'd love to do Penelope, Princess of Pets, but
I'd love to see it.
Epics.
Yeah.
Penelope, Princess of...
Mark.
I could take this one too.
Yes, please.
Go, girl.
I was sort of working on some stuff, and then my friend Murray Hill's like, you should start your own band. Like you need to be in charge of your own thing. So I did it, and my life immediately started to change. And then this guy who plays bass in my band, I was like, oh, I got this grant, and they're telling me I can record an album, but let's just do like 12 covers. But I asked him because he's in a band and he had some recording experience, and he's like, you need to write your own songs. And I was like, but I'm not a songwriter. And then he's like, yes, you are. And then, so that's when I just started writing. I was like, these ideas are so silly. And they're like, so, he's like, well, silly's working for me, it's gonna work for you, and just do you. And he's always said, do you. And as soon as I started doing that, my life changed like a rocket ship. So it was pretty cool. And one of those songs is the Titties one where you can motorboat people, which is...
It's a great song. Seriously, it's a great song. I mean, just as a song, it's great.
It's catchy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It's legitimately a...
I hit the track.
Sing it, come on.
You guys talked a little bit about like working with other people like Kurt and your band, and I think you guys have worked with each other a bit and at some point in time in your career. How important is collaboration in what you do now or something that you've done in the past? Like, how important is it to have people that you choose to work with, or people that you don't choose to work with?
Oh, it is huge. I've talked to, sometimes I get a chance, I talk to kids or people come up and they're like, how do I get into voice acting? Because that's a very popular question. And I tell them, you just look around you at your peers. Those are your friends that are making things, and those are the people that you're gonna come up with. It's gonna take you 15 years.
Yeah.
But you're gonna make stuff together. Almost every job that I've gotten because the people know me. From stand-up 10 years ago. Yeah. So it's so important. All your friends make stuff and then they invite you to play.
That you're in Sleepwalk with Me, and you were cast and also I cast you from just knowing you could do a part from us knowing each other so many years, and then you were stuck in England the day we were shooting.
Edinburgh.
You're in Edinburgh. And we were, this is how well we've known each other. We were like, okay, then she'll play this other part. And then you played that part, and it was great. I totally agree with you.
Probably a better part.
Yeah, it's probably better.
It's 2 lines, guys, right?
But
if you saw it, I was the MC of the talent show. There's no small parts.
But Eugene Merman, who I feel like you're referencing in some ways, because you guys do Bob's Burgers together and everything, like, he always says, you guys know Eugene Merman? He's a great comedian.
He lives on Cape Cod, you guys. He's like your neighbor.
Go to his house tonight.
I'm going on Monday if you want to come.
What's his address?
We're going to a pop-up restaurant.
He's a phenomenal comedian, and people always ask him for advice, and young comics, and he always says, start doing it, keep doing it, call me in 10 years. Which I think is like the best advice.
Great
one can
advice.
get.
But they don't like getting it.
No.
Because they're ready now. So they're like,
I love collaborating. No, I do. Like, I'm a songwriter, and I guess I said that out loud. And I have like a song idea, and I go to like a person that I think will vibe on that song. And I've worked with so many different people, like jazz musicians and rockers and Broadway theater people, and it's exciting to see what you can come up with, because I inevitably it's going to be better than what I can come up with on my own. Not that I'm like I just like the idea of like together we are stronger. I think it's a really cool thing. So
Hillary's campaign?
Too soon.
So anyway.
I think there's nothing better than collaborating with someone that you're, vibrating on the same frequency with, and there's nothing worse than collaborating with someone that you're not. Again, sorry to be the bummer, but in network television, you don't have a lot of choices of who you work with. Like, I had no idea. Like, I don't know if this was your experience. Like, you're a comedian. We're artists. We go from comedy clubs every night, like making drunk strangers laugh till like 4 a.m. and sleep till 2, and then you get a show, and then you're running a business all of a sudden, and you have employees, and you have to like fire people, and you have to make good hiring decisions. And I just had no idea how to do that, admittedly, and you want to hire the people with the most experience. You think, okay, I'm good, right? But then a lot of times that means people who have like egos, or people who don't respect what you want to do, or they, there's a reason they haven't had their own thing because they just staff on other people. Like, I just didn't know any of this. So sometimes you find yourself stuck with someone who's like not into your vision at all, or they don't get it, or, they want to do what they did on Veronica's Closet in the 80s or something, and you get stuck in a really weird place, and then you're having to tell people who have way more experience than you know, which is really hard. So I learned the hard way to collaborate with the right people, because there's nothing worse than collaborating with the wrong people. You're kind of just like fighting all day with people that you're not dating, which is weird.
I don't know if you should be fighting with who you're dating, Whitney.
Well, then, then what goes on during sex? I don't follow.
Just tender loving.
How do you get him to stay?
Oh my goodness.
She had a bad childhood.
I don't follow. I don't have that adorable voice of yours. I have to manipulate people to make them love me. I don't wear skirts.
I'm single.
That's crazy. You should have 100 boyfriends. I do not understand
You're right.
that.
I'll be right back. Where's Chris? I have a crush on Chris Matthews, but it's not like weird, but just like.
No, it's weird. It's weird.
I just want to stand next to him.
Where is he?
Chris?
Where is that Chris Matthews? Oh, there he is.
Oh, don't! I don't want to know if he's here.
You're saying you want to play some hardball with him first.
Hardball with Chris and Bridget.
I mean, that's a show.
That's a show.
Remember when we were worried if children were here?
This is a great place to learn about life, and I'm being serious.
It's always like this. It's always uncomfortable. It is. It's always too early in the day, and then we're always saying things that are inappropriate.
Yeah. Did you have more questions?
I'm sorry, you guys invited comedians to a school. I don't know what you thought would happen.
Is this all the people on the island, by the way? I mean, how many people are here?
This is the biggest. Isn't this the biggest venue for the? Yeah.
Yeah, this is the MSG.
Are there this
yeah.
many? Is this space so big because there's so many students at this school? Right? No. Right? There are this. So if all the students from this school were in this auditorium, they fill it up. Okay.
Are you trying to shoot a special here? Why are you asking?
When is the space available?
So how many cameras? How many cameras can I put in the back?
Special here.
Can I rig something up
Would
here?
it work? Would it work with the audience? Like, would it?
A Nantucket
would it be-
special?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna try it.
No, me neither. It's risky. It's risky.
It's you. It's all
Yeah.
you.
Well, if you shoot it in the winter, everyone will be drunk.
And if it doesn't go well, you can just say you were storytelling.
Yeah.
Like 18 minutes ago, you said something about.
Excuse me?
No. Before we started riffing, you were talking about saying no to people.
Yeah.
And I'm coming to a point where I am enjoying saying no. Not like to projects or just knowing what I want to do and being able to take advantage of no. Because like some people say like, you know, the power of yes is very powerful and you should be able to say yes to everything. And when you're coming up in comedy, there's that instinct to say yes to everything because you want a job and you want to keep working and you want to have connections. But then after a while, it is beneficial to say no sometimes, to know like how to treat yourself and also how to teach other people how to treat you too. Have you guys found benefits of saying no, or like, can you remember a time where you said no, where you were like, oh, thank God I did that, or?
I was, you know, one of the hardest things I think for me is saying no to a job, because getting a job is so exciting, and I always think that even if it's a job that's so clearly not a good fit, I can't not stress out about it for 2 days. I just feel terrible turning down work. But one thing that I started, sometimes like when I played the stalker and the big fan in Flight of the Conchords, after that everyone wanted me to play a stalker character. So that at that point, if it's a character you feel like you've done a dozen times, those are easy to say no to from the gut, but my head makes me crazy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I can think of many times that I should have said no, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. And I do think that as you evolve, you start to understand how important it is. I'm impressed with people who know how to say no at early in their career and have that sense of you look at some of the great careers of comedians and filmmakers and great film actors, and it's the choices that they made.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wish I learned how to say no.
What's the job that you're like, oh, I should have said no?
Oh, gosh. I mean, it was probably like 18.
Someone says Zoolander?
No.
All right, bring it. Let's hear it. No, I mean, it's all armchair quarterback. You know, like you can't, you make the decision and you go with it, and, you know, at the time, you make your best choice. And, but, you know, I do think when you're starting out, you have to be open and you have to take chances and work. You just have to work, and work begets work. And then when you have a sense of it, then you figure out when it feels right. But you have to put it out there, and you have to just go for it, and you learn, and you just keep going.
Yeah, even from
That's the most depressing answer.
No, even from the
No, to hindsight, yeah.
No, yeah. I mean, it's if you have that inside where you have a gut feeling where you know that's and you don't do it, that's the one. Those are the ones you regret. When you go like, I really felt like I shouldn't have done that.
I've mostly had regrets for things that I knew I should have said no to because I had a gut feeling, and then I kept doing it, and then the outcome was still bad like I thought it was.
Yeah, every relationship I've ever been in.
So yeah, I guess that's why I'm going through this phase where I'm like, yeah, I think my gut's right. I think I should just follow it and go follow through with the nose.
I think that specifically we're in an interesting time where there's so much stuff happening that we have to say no more. Like I found like a month ago, I was so busy. My job was full-time podcast guest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Once you say yes to one, the
You
word
gotta
gets
do
out.
them all.
Yeah.
You can't just do one podcast, because then every comedian finds out you did one, and then you're driving to like Van Nuys every day. You guys
And then
don't know what
you're-
Van Nuys is.
Then
and
you're
you
having
never
a
will.
chat, and then you forget it's on record.
And you're there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And no one gives you a check at the end. You don't get a trophy. Nobody cares. You've just revealed all your most intimate details about yourself, and you'll be single forever. That's all that happens from a podcast. So it's tricky. It's like everyone's got a podcast, everybody's got a show, everybody has a thing, and you want to work with all of your friends, and you want to say yes, and you want to help other people. But I think we're at this tricky time where if you are too exposed in one way, that's the only way people see you. Like I see people on social media, and I'm like, girl, you got to stop. Like, this is not working. Too much social media posts, and people see you as yourself too much, and then they don't think of you as an actor, or if you write too much, people think of you as a writer and not a stand-up. Like, I think that for people that do so many things or want to do so many things, it's about like pacing it out or making a timeline so that you're not, like right now I'm running a show, just running it, and I'm not in it, and then now it's like people are like, oh, I thought she was just running shows, she doesn't want to act anymore. And it's like, no, you have to like actively make sure you're sending the right messages to the community so you're still considered for the kind of jobs you want.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to do more acting?
I want to be a model. Is that funny to you? Savage group of people. But it is tricky because it's like we do writing and stuff, but it's like as a woman I do know like TikTok, like time, you only have so much time on camera as a woman, so I'm like,
No way. I'm going to work so much when I'm old. You kidding? That's when the money's coming in. Yeah. Waiting.
Not me. Not me. So it's like trying to figure out what comes when,
Mm-hmm. Do you guys think about how much of your personal life to put out into the world, like on social media or in podcasts or in your stand-up or in your act? Like, do you think about like, how much do you want to talk about your relationship or your family or your friends or anything like that? Or do you just talk and then you're like, we'll see what happens?
I had a special on Netflix that you can see if you want. It's called My Girlfriend's Boyfriend, and it was about how my wife and I, who's here today, decided to get married despite the fact that neither of us believed in the idea of marriage. And it was actually like a huge kind of like 2-year-long conversation between me and my wife of what could be in the show and what couldn't be in the show. And so I feel like when you're doing autobiographical stuff, like you really have to spend time with the people who you care about.
Yeah.
Like, well, what are we comfortable with? What are we not? And my wife wrote like probably all the best lines on the show, so it's really beneficial, I think, to do that too.
My live shows, which you probably have not seen, it's available online. It's really personal, but I like it because and my family comes to my shows, and it's it's a pretty wild night. I'll just say that. And but there's also like always a tender moment, which is because I enjoy sharing the stories that I wouldn't be able to sit down and talk to a friend with, or I don't see a mental health care professional. I just do it in show business or in shows, but in the genre of cabaret, that's kind of what you do. You tell your stories, and my family just somehow supports it. So I'm really lucky. I think they're just happy I'm like getting a chance to do something that makes me happy, and I say some things that probably could be considered hurtful, but in a funny way.
It's a very strange thing with Sleepwalk with Me was based on my life, and there's characters in it played by who play my parents, the late great James Radbourne, who you worked with, and Carol Kane, and the lines that they said were lines that my parents literally said verbatim, and in real life, and then they saw the movie. And I was really anxious about it, like, oh no, like they're really gonna freak out. And they saw it and they go, oh, those people are nothing like us. So, people are idiots. I mean, my parents are idiots, I feel like is the lesson there.
My parents actually played my parents in real life, so that's basically, I was living at the opposite. So I would really be watching them say things about our life, which was crazy. But the social media thing, like, it's so not my generation. Like, I'm very uncomfortable sharing my life on social media, yet I've engaged with it, and usually like for philanthropy or charity stuff, but sometimes, for something having to do with a movie coming out, but kind of rarely, and sometimes just like for fun. I have an Instagram that's public Instagram, then I have like 50 followers on my private Instagram for just like my family stuff, and I feel more comfortable with that. Yeah. But it's just not, it's interesting to me because it really is a generational thing, the way that people, under a certain age now, it's just a natural part of your existence is to have your phone and to take pictures. And the pictures thing is something that people just, basically feel like is, that's just life, and you take pictures all the time. You sometimes tell people, sometimes you don't. If you say no to a picture, that's weird.
Yeah.
It's a strange thing that I think for me, I think it's generational just because, so if I meet somebody who's like under, I don't know, like 30 or something, I get it, because it's just, that's part of their, just their world that they've grown up with.
Mm-hmm. It's tempting though, because, it's like if your Instagram has 1 million followers, it's like that's as much as a TV show gets, or maybe more, so it's just confusing. And, I found I was recently making something and agents were pitching me social media stars. I don't know if this has happened yet. Yeah, sure, they're sure. This girl, she's got 6 million followers on Vine, and I'm like, cool, what's her skill? Like, can she act? They're like, no. I mean, of course not. She's just wears bathing suits. And I'm like, cool. Like, I'm good. Like, but that's a new sort of part of the business that is lucrative, and you can get. I see a lot of TV shows casting those kind of people to get eyeballs on the show, and it's just hard sometimes to not make corny choices based on that sort of appeal of eyeballs in this sort of desperate competition for constant eyeballs. In terms of like what I talk about, I definitely learned the hard way not to reveal too much about myself, which is hard in stand-up because that's sort of what we do. I had sort of a rock bottom moment where I was on a date and someone, like stranger, came up to me and was like, hey, how's the ingrown hair? And I was like, that now's not a good time. It was, if you could, it was like something I talked about where I was worried it was a herpes, but it was just an ingrown hair, and it was, we're good. And then I'd explain to this guy, I was like, I thought I had herpes, but it was just an ingrown hair. And that was a bummer for everyone involved. So, I just learned once you reveal so much about yourself and that, then you're putting yourself in a vulnerable situation. And I think I recently also learned that to be a comedian, I thought we had to be crazy and suffering in order to be funny. I recently learned that's not really sustainable, so I'm trying to create thanks. an environment where my life is not in chaos and stressful.
Hey, good luck with that.
Thank you.
Maybe we should hang out more.
We should hang out more. Teach me.
All right. Did you want to say something?
How is it? All right.
It took I did throw my back out tweezing it. No, but we're good.
You seem very bendy, though.
No, I'm not. I'm not.
Oh, because of the location.
Yes, I had to put one foot on the tub and do like a Cirque du Soleil type contortionist situation to remove the ingrown, but it's gone for now.
And how did the date turn out? Get over it? Did it get
No.
past? Okay.
I don't know if this is the wrong time to ask.
over
Where is the Roundtable? Is that when it like starts or whatever? Is when the Roundtable shows up?
Cutting back on the budget.
Well, someone flashed me that we have 10 minutes left, so we're going to read some audience questions.
Ooh.
Okay. Is clean or raunchy comedy material?
Hey!
It's just for you, Whitney. I guess what they're asking is it easier to write clean or raunchy material?
Oh, I would say raunchy is the easiest joke by far. I mean, it's so shocking how much I try to stay away from it because I know my mom and dad don't like it. But it always, every time I say a sex joke, it just gets a way bigger laugh than my intelligent joke. I don't know what it is about you guys, but you can't get enough of the scum. So I do, it's like no matter what, I would say every 3 or 4 jokes of a stand-up set of mine will have something related to dirty jokes. But I strive for the clean jokes. I do.
I'm so torn on this. I don't curse a ton on stage, but then I'm also suspicious of people who don't curse a lot on stage, because like sometimes they have sex with people when they're unconscious, and like I feel like that's a thing that should be discussed. Like honestly, no, I mean I grew up on Cosby and I loved Cosby and I really did, and I loved that he was clean.
I hope that they take that quote out of context and just say, I love Cosby.
I loved
Mike Burbick.
Cosby. I love Cosby.
I said yesterday.
I grew up on Cosby, and I think we're all devastated by all this stuff, but you really do have to take a look at some of the stuff that's so clean that it's ridiculous, and just go like, is it even reflecting the existence that we're experiencing?
Whoa. Wow.
I know.
I love that. Thanks.
Birbiglia argues comedy too clean.
I think about it all the time because my mom...
Birbiglia outraged, no Roundtable.
No, I think about it constantly.
That's a Bill Cosby premise, actually.
No, because I think about it constantly because when I started out, my mom was very Catholic. I grew up in Massachusetts, and she'd be like, I was like, I'm gonna be a comedian. She was like, just don't become a dirty comedian. And I was like, okay. And she was like, you don't have to use those words to be funny. For example, Oprah's very funny. And I was like, yeah, I agree. Sure,
I don't think Oprah thinks she's funny.
But that's not my goal in life, to be a daytime queen. But I really, I think
And here you are doing comedy at 1:00.
I know, but it's a similar thing to what you're saying with your parents. I mean,
Yeah.
I deal with that issue with my parents for sure.
Or we do shows for Bob's Burgers tours a lot, and there's always going to be kids. Somehow kids come to see me a lot, and that then I keep it clean. I can't help it. Oh my God, kids. Don't bring your kids to comedy shows, guys, but you can't help that for some reason.
My show's pretty wild and kids come and I kind of like it. I mean, not in like I like that young people see a woman who is fully sexualized and in control of her body, that doesn't look like everybody else might look. And so a lot of my jokes are dirty, but it also, I call it like slam, slam, slam tender. You have to you can sort of be vulgar if you want, because that's who I am. So I'm going to talk about who I am. But you have to balance it with heart and with things that aren't, dick jokes or whatever. But if you are being a reflection of who you are, Kristen and I, we were on a show, I remember 2006, and we were both we were this alternative comedy, whatever. But we're very different comics, but I think Kristen is genius, and I love her style, but she's her, and I'm me, and I think as long as you're being true to what you are, and it's not like you're just not saying a dick joke because that's a cheap laugh. If you're just doing the things that are you, then it's about truth in comedy, I guess. Is that the right way to say it? So I think as long as you're being truthful.
You nailed it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Chris, how'd I do?
I agree. Yeah.
I've also heard some smart dick jokes.
Oh, absolutely.
I feel like it's possible to write a raunchy, dirty joke, but have an intelligent viewpoint on it too.
Yeah, and everybody's definition of clean, and what was the word?
Raunchy.
Yeah, it was interesting
Raunchy
how
is
that happened because she
different.
said raunchy and you went to sex and
I
he went to
did.
curse words.
I did go to
That was interesting.
I think especially now, women need to, when I was coming up, I was praised for not talking about women, being a woman. They're your jokes are just universal, and you're not talking about being a woman, and we love you. But at the same time, I was on stage with men who were talking their D jokes and they were doing just as good as me, and no one said you're talking about being a man all the time. Would you stop it? So now I've come the other way, and I want to talk about my period, and I want to talk about all of it unabashed, because I don't think it was a weird censoring, a natural censoring with the way society is going, but it's good to. But they would call me talking about being a woman and sexual and stuff raunchy. So I don't care. Good.
I mean, yeah, it all becomes such a Rorschach test, right? It's what some people think is just funny is raunchy. It depends on where you are and who it is and who's offended. I think there's definitely some trigger words that you can tell a smart joke about sex without saying trigger words. Don't mean to brag, but I did do 20 minutes. Are there children in here?
Yeah, round of applause if you're under 15. Just
is it
one
just
person.
one? Oh, okay.
That's all we were worried about is just that one kid.
Rita, she's hip. She's cool. I talked to her before. She's
Well, because
she's
I think
cool.
it's I think sex is very important to talk about because to me it's power. And power is shown through it, and I just noticed some interesting power dynamic things. I had a guy spit in my face. Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I know, thank you. And
At a show?
in a sensual context, and I was like, I can't not talk about this. Something's going on. Do you know what I mean? This is a deep-rooted human nature power, restore the power dynamic thing that I can't just not talk about. I think it'd be less responsible to just pretend it didn't happen and not talk about it because I have shame about talking about sex. Instead, address it, and half the women in the audience had it happen to them too, and they're like, I thought I was the only one. And I'm like, no, we all probably just dated the same guy. But to me, it's to not talk about something because sex is involved, I think is kind of walking on eggshells around other people's sensitivity and what's taboo is just, I think, very anathema to what doing stand-up is all about, which is figuring out where the edge is and going slightly over it. But I do try to stay away from some trigger words, you can't say vagina. You just can't anymore. It's just, there's a weird, you can. I've hit my capacity on it. No one will let me say it anymore, but because I've found there's a couple words that just tune people off, and if I find that, I'll try to stay away from them. But I think that there's artful ways to sort of get around it and still cover those kind of topics.
You say vulva now.
I say vulva.
All right, I got the wrap it up signal, so I'm gonna ask one last question, and then we'll all get out of here. What's the worst joke you have ever told?
Let's go do a different question.
that's
Yeah, let's do
That's a downer.
another one.
It's a downer.
Positive question.
Oh, okay. What's the best joke? No, all right. Do it and act it out right now. I'm just trying to find a fast one. That would be good. Were you always funny growing up?
Yes.
I hope so. I don't think my parents didn't find me that hilarious.
I don't think so. I was weird growing up. Like, I think I acted out in weird ways that were not. I didn't like have this desire to be funny. Except like with certain people or with my sister, we'd do things and we'd make each other laugh. But not like a desire, like, hey, get up in front of people and be a comedian.
I always found like I grew up in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, and I always found that I always found the class clown in school was always like the mean guy who walks around and is like, you're fat, you're gay, I'm out of here, and I was always a little fat and a little gay, like I never got along with that guy, and so this whole class clown concept is very confusing to me. I was always just writing down poems and writing stories and things, and then eventually became a comedian. But I don't think the class clown thing holds true. I think it's like 50-50.
Yeah, my family was confused when I became a comedian. They're like, when did you think you were funny?
Yeah. And your mom is super funny. If you ever have a chance to listen to this year's episode of This American Life, one of the episodes of This American Life, and I forget the name.
It'll make sense when you're older.
It'll make sense when you're older, where she interviews her mother. Do yourself a favor and go home and listen to that. It's online, and your mom is super funny.
She's so funny and not on purpose, and
I think it's on purpose. I think she knows.
She just goes for it. She's hilarious, yeah. But she's like always like negging me, like I can do what you're doing, and she actually is now. She's like taking acting classes. She booked a commercial recently. Her trajectory is like way faster than mine.
She will be hosting this panel next year.
I know, she'll be here next year.
She's bringing the Roundtable.
I'm the youngest of six kids, and my brothers and sisters are all really funny. My parents are super funny. My mom by accident. My dad like a quick wit, like the fun, charming guy in town. But they also were sort of like, what do you mean you're like doing this for a living? Because around them I was never funny, but I learned to be funny from them, and I was funny with my friends. And I love show choir, and once I did show choir,
Me
the
too.
rest is history. Oh my God!
Yeah. We'll talk about it later. Did everyone answer? I feel great about this. Do you guys feel good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you guys feel good?
I feel good.
Give it up for the Comedy Roundtable, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thanks
coming.
for coming.